Evening and welcome everybody. Welcome as we take a look at chapter 3, analyzing the internal organization this week. As I mentioned, I couldn't be with all of you this week, so I wanted to make sure to give a chance to provide a video for those of you that might have wanted to walk through some of the key points and highlights of our semester together. So, some components of internal analysis of our organization. We really start looking at the resources that our organization has available to us, right? An important thing to remember is just because we possess resources or capabilities, it doesn't necessarily mean we can turn those into core competencies or a sustainable competitive advantage. So, resources can be both tangible and intangible. Tangible resources are those you can touch, the intangible resources, a lot of times, are the sources of competitive advantage because they're a little bit harder to duplicate, replicate, or imitate. When we can use resources in a meaningful and effective way, we can create capabilities. When those capabilities, the things that we can do discernibly better than someone else, when we can bundle them in a way that creates value, the important piece being they're creating value for others, they can become a core competency. And core competencies are at the core of sustainable competitive advantage and strategic competitiveness. So when we think of creating value, right? Value is really in the eye, in the perception of the beholder. What is valuable to one might not be valuable to another. When we looked at business level strategy last week, one of the risks with a lot of those business strategy is what a buyer and a seller perceives as value, as having worth, can be two different things. One definition that I heard of value is that it's at the intersection of a customer's wants and needs, right? So wants and needs come together. That's where is the best opportunity to create value. And certainly when we think about creating competitive advantage and strategic choice, we want to create something of value for other people. That value proposition is key. It's what Simon Sinek talks about in The Power of Why. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it, right? What is that value that you're going to bring that connects to that why? It becomes a very important aspect to competitive advantage. So some of the challenges with analyzing an internal organization, as we look outward and we look at our products and services, the 4 P's of marketing, diversification, all the business level strategies that we looked at last week, that's analyzing that external environment. But there are some unique challenges with analyzing our internal organization. And one of the first challenges, they're not routine. There's not a scripted decision-making matrix that you can go through, right? So analyzing an internal organization are not necessarily routine. They can have significant ethical implications, right? And they certainly influence our ability to earn above average returns and deliver value to the marketplace. Some other challenges with analyzing an internal organization, just because we have a capability, just because we can garner some resources and some similar resources, doesn't necessarily mean it can be a competence or a core competence. We need to be able to use those capabilities in a discernibly better way than our competition. We need to learn quickly from failures and mistakes, right? And for a lot of organizations, even today, that's a challenge, right? Do we use those mistakes or failures as learning moments, or do we run from them? Do we hide them, right? John Maxwell wrote the book, Sometimes We Learn, Sometimes We Win, Sometimes We Learn, right? It's not sometimes we win, sometimes we lose, sometimes we win, sometimes we fail, right? He wrote the book, Sometimes We Win, Sometimes We Learn. He also wrote the book called Fail Forward, right? Learn how to fail successfully. We have to have the maturity of judgment to deal effectively with uncertainty, complexity, and inter-organizational conflicts in an unbiased manner. This one is taking that lens of decision making, taking that lens of leadership and turning it so we're right in the mirror, right? Let me reread that one because it's tough, right? Having the maturity of judgment to deal effectively with uncertainty, right? That uncertainty is a tough thing for a lot of people. Complexity and intra-organizational conflicts in an unbiased manner. So how are we going to deal with that, right? How are we going to deal with that in a meaningful, successful way? A lot of that surrounds around emotional intelligence. Developing a mindset and a leadership mindset throughout our organization. Doesn't mean everyone gets to make the decisions or have the authority of a leader, but certainly if they can create a leadership mindset, right? So they can deal with uncertainty, complexity, right? Look at situations and cut through what we actually know versus what we think we know or what we might have heard. And we also have to be willing to take intelligent risks, right? There's certainly nothing wrong with risk taking, and there's a huge difference, right, between being risk taking and reckless. Leaders and people who are great at analyzing organizations and analyzing strategy know the difference. So resources, right? Resources, they're the source of capabilities, as we talked about. You need to have some resources and then bundle them in a meaningful way. They can be very broad in scope, yet by themselves, if we cannot bundle resources in a meaningful way, they do not lead to competitive advantage, right? And as we said, there's resources, there's tangible and intangible resources. When we bundle resources in a unique way, right, we create capabilities, right? And capabilities, can lie in unique skill sets of employees, functional expertise of employees, right? And are often developed within those functional areas, right? Sometimes that functional structure gets overly criticized, but a lot of capabilities and core competencies, the root of them is within the functional competencies within an organization. If we look at some of the capabilities, right? Walmart, a lot of times people say, well, Walmart can sell things at a cheaper price because they have volume or the size of their organization. Well, that's important, but they got to that size through distribution. Distribution is one of the key core competencies and capabilities, right, of Walmart. They get more things, more products and services to more people in more places than anyone else, right? And because of that, they can do it more efficiently, effectively at a lower price, right? And in the brick and mortar world, Walmart has been and still is very dominant, right? Of course, Amazon took that strategy and applied getting more things and more people faster and cheaper and quicker than anyone else. They did it in an e-commerce platform. Capabilities, right? So 4 criteria for determining capabilities. Are they valuable? Can we create value? Are they rare, right? It means, does everyone have access to them? Are they fairly rare? Are they costly or challenging in some way to imitate? And is it not a lot of substitutes available, right? So you need those things going on for capabilities to be strategic enough that we can create a core competency from them. Core competencies, right? Those are capabilities that are sources of your competitive advantage, or capabilities that you use in a very unique way to create competitive advantage, and it distinguishes your organization, right? And a lot of times, core competencies are developed through industry experience, knowledge, right? That's why sometimes, why do we hire senior leaders in our organization, right? Sometimes we develop them from within because they know our company, they know the industry. Sometimes we hire industry veterans. We steal talent away from other organizations and people maybe with 10, 15, 20 years of experience in industry. That's why we value that experience, because they can recognize core competencies and they can help use those core competencies to create strategic competitive advantage. So criteria for sustaining competitive advantage, we need valuable capabilities. It needs to be able to create value for other people. They need to be fairly rare. They need to be costly to imitate and not capable of being substituted, right? So very similar, the core competencies and capabilities, they tie together. Valuable, rare, costly to imitate, and not easily substituted for, right? And one of the charts shows that valuable, rare, costly to imitate, non-substitutable, right? So if it's valuable, but it's not super rare, maybe not a lot of costly to imitate, but not easy to find substitutes, you might have competitive parity, right? So you might be able to do things at least as good as the competition, or if you get a little head start, they're going to catch up quickly, and you're going to get fairly average returns, right? You hit a home run, something that's valuable, rare, costly to imitate, and non-substitutable. That could be a sustainable competitive advantage, and you're definitely going to have above average returns. Some organizations, when they're looking at how they can create value for other organizations or for their customers and how they can create value, something of value better than other organizations, they look at their value chain, right? So they look at everything from in a manufacturing world, they use that example, or service industry, right? We have an order from a customer, right? They need and want something from us. It goes through our internal operations or our internal service delivery system, and then we deliver the service or the product, and then we charge for it, right? A lot of times it's called our order to cash flow, right? So we get an order, we can collect an invoice for a service or a product, right? A lot of organizations look at what are all the steps through that, creating that value chain analysis. What is everything? What are all the inputs? Where is value added? Where can we take out waste? And how can we maximize value to our customers? And when we look at competitive advantage, competencies, strengths, weaknesses, and strategic decisions, one thing we have to remember is that core competencies will not always create a competitive advantage, right? And core competencies that have become competitive advantages can become core rigidities, right? So if I have a competitive advantage today, it doesn't mean it's going to be a competitive advantage tomorrow, next week, or next month. And in fact, over time, if we rely on that former competitive advantage and that former core competency for too long, it actually can become a core rigidity, right? You think of Kodak, right? What happened to Kodak, right? 35 millimeter film, which was at one time a core competency, became a core rigidity, right? If you think of Avon, that personalized sales person that went door to door, right? That Avon ladies, we used to call them, right? That became a core rigidity. At one time it worked, but then it didn't, right? And they lost their competitive advantage. So, one thing to always keep in mind, that's why it's important to be analyzing simultaneously internally our organization and externally. Both aspects of analyzing our business environments, both internally and externally, are very important. That's why kind of the second half of the semester and the last like quarter of the semester, we're really going to talk about the importance of internal strategy, right? External strategy, the 4 P's of marketing, diversification, business level strategy, all extremely important, right? But there's also that internal aspect, that internal analysis. Are we doing the right things? Are we creating the right products and services? Do we have the right people? Do we have the right culture? Do we have the right systems and procedures in place, right? The right way of relating to each other? That all the greatness and talent in an organization can maximize competitive advantage externally in the marketplace. Hope you've enjoyed this look at some of the key topics and key themes for this week. I'll be back with you all next week. Have a wonderful week. We will see you all back early October. Thank you very much.